Mr. Speaker, thank you very much for joining us.
Frederica, it's great to be back with you. Thanks for having me.
You bet. Now, so what's your take on what is happening in your party, specifically the ascendancy of Donald Trump?
Well, I think what's happening is you're seeing a very, very creative and very anxious party. I think people are really taken aback at where the country has gone in the last 8 years. They're worried about jobs. They're worried about economic anxiety, national security. Donald Trump's a famous guy who's speaking to people's anxieties. He's giving voice to a lot of folks' concerns. It's a very competitive primary. I mean, Ted Cruz is barnstorming the state. So is John Kasich. As you probably well know, as chairman of the convention, I'm very neutral in this. So I play sort of the neutral, honest broker since I'm chairman of the convention. But I think what's happening in our party is wants to make sure that we get the country on the right track, and that they're very worried about the direction America's headed.
Well, what do you say to voters who apparently have tapped into anger over establishment politics expressed in support for candidates like Donald Trump and Bernie Sanders?
Yeah, I mean, the word establishment is a word you haven't heard until about a year or two ago, so it's a new term. But I think if we give voice to the anxiety and the anger and channel it into solutions, then I think we're being productive in doing our jobs. And so what I think matters most is that we don't simply repeat the anger, but that we try and channel it to solutions. And that is exactly what I'm working on doing as Speaker of the House. We have what we call our agenda project, where we have task forces in Congress working on assembling an agenda to address the big problems confronting our country: economic growth, poverty, wages, health care reform. How do you prevent entitlement programs from going bankrupt? And how do you prevent a debt crisis? What do we need to do to improve our national security and make sure our military can deliver on a safe national security strategy? How do you restore the separation of powers and government by consent by making sure that the legislative branch of government is really the branch of government writing the laws and not unelected bureaucracies? These are the things that we think are front and center important issues. It's the source of the concern that people are showing us, telling about us about, and that is why we want to offer solutions. So what we need to do is say, here are our principles. We know that these are problems. We understand the frustration. Here's our solution. Here's how we apply our principles to the problems of the day to offer solutions to the country. And then if we do our job, we will give people a very clear and compelling choice in 2016 so that the men and women of this country, the citizens, can make a decision at the ballot box what direction they want to take. That's what we think we owe our fellow citizens, and that's what we're working on doing.
I want to ask you about the so-called cheesehead revolution involving yourself, RNC Chair Reince Priebus, and Governor Scott Walker. Now, this revolution was poised to set the GOP course for this presidential election. Then came Donald Trump. Can the cheeseheads affect a course change now, and if so, how?
Well, I think people give us too much credit than we deserve. We are basically our ascension, so to speak, has coincided. Reince did a phenomenal job building the Republican Party in Wisconsin. Has taken those skills to the national party. I'm in a job I wasn't necessarily planning on being in. I'm happy to be there now. And Scott obviously has been a very successful two-term governor. And so I don't think that we see ourselves as controlling or directing the party, so to speak. That is what that the organic grassroots party does, and that's what those of us who are leaders in our various capacities do. So I don't really see that we see ourselves as in control of this. We see ourselves as committed conservatives who want to take our principles, apply them to problems, and offer solutions and get things done. What Reince and Scott and I see ourselves basically being is, how can we be the most effective at our jobs and actually getting things done on behalf of our constituents and improving the quality of life, making a difference? That's really what we see ourselves as being, not necessarily as sort of directing or controlling the direction of our political party.
Now, I don't have to tell you that you've been forwarded as being an alternative to Donald Trump in a brokered convention. What is your response to that?
Not going to happen, won't be the case. I think it should be, we should choose from those who are running. I'm not running for president. I chose consciously not to run for president, and as the chairman of the convention, I should not be considered as far as I'm concerned.
Now, it might
be... that means it won't be me. Yeah, I'll be really clear about that.
It might be said, though, that you acquiesced before being elected Speaker That's not what's happening here?
That's different. That's different. I'm already in Congress. That's just moving from being a chairman of the Ways and Means Committee to Speaker of the House while being a member of Congress. This is an entirely different situation. Entirely, the parallel, I just don't think works. It's a non sequitur as far as I'm concerned. And so I'm chairman of the convention, and therefore I will not be considered as a nominee.
Back to Donald Trump. He says that your ticket lost the election in 2012 over your proposals for entitlement reform. And here in your hometown this week, he suggested that as House Speaker Paul Ryan, you're proposing what he called a doomed political agenda on entitlement reform. What's your response to that?
Well, I just think the results speak for themselves. Obviously, I've been reelected handily after proposing. By the way, the entitlement reforms I've been proposing save these programs from bankruptcy. They make sure that we can continue to keep the promised benefits to people in and near retirement and reform them for younger generations so that they exist for them when they retire, and they prevent these programs from going bankrupt. I've been able to communicate that, I think, fairly effectively, and my employers, the people in the 1st Congressional District, have sent me back to Congress. Mitt Romney and I won the senior vote in 2012 by 12 percentage points. That's the best a Republican ticket has done among senior citizens in America since 1984, when Ronald Reagan won in a landslide.
House Speaker Paul Ryan, we leave it there. Thanks very much for joining us.
You bet, Frederica. Have a good one. Nice to be back with you.
Thanks.